Right? We've been telling stories about Guru Nanak because soon it's to be his, and boats, yes. We'll talk about boats sometime too. But Guru Nanak was a grown-up man now. Yeah, he was a grown-up man, and he had time for him to go out and walk all around and with his friends and tell people about God. And so he had friends. Mardana, he was a Muslim, and Bala, he was a Hindu. Those were the religions of the day. So people wondered, they said, well, his friends, one is a Hindu, one is a Muslim, but he looks a little different. Is he a Hindu? Is he a Muslim? What is he? And they asked Guru Nanak, and he said, you know, there is no Hindu and there is no Muslim. And they said, what? What do you mean by that? And the governor of the town heard that. Well, there weren't any Sikhs then. It was just Guru Nanak, right? And the governor heard that he had said, there's no Muslims. And they said, well, he can say what he wants to about the Hindus, but he can't say there's no Muslims because that's our religion. That's what we do. Right. So he said, go and bring him here. So the messenger went, and he was all, I'll get him and I'll bring him here. But when he saw Guru Nanak, and Guru Nanak was so shiny and beautiful, and he kind of thought again, he said, sir, he said very nice to him instead of saying, come on with me. He said, sir, the governor would like to see you, the Nawab would like to see you. Would you please come with me? Guru Nanak said, all right. So he went, and they said, why did you say there's no Muslim and there's no Hindu? What are you talking about? He said, well, you've all forgotten. You've all forgotten that if you can't see God in all, you can't see God at all. And you all have your rules about this and that and the other. That's right. And they said, well, the governor said, well, all right, maybe you're right about that a little bit, but if you don't think that you're a Muslim or a Hindu, we're going to say our Muslim prayers. Will you pray with us? He said, yes, I would love to. If you will lead the prayers, I will. So they all have their rituals, you know, and they all bowed down on their knees. But Guru Nanak stayed standing up, looking around. And they were going on, doing their prayers. He's looking around. So that made the governor very mad. He said, afterwards, he said, you said you'd pray with us. Why didn't you? You weren't praying at all. And he said, well, I said I would pray with you if you would lead it. And you weren't praying at all. And he turned to the Quasi, who was the priest, and he said, you were thinking about the little new baby horse, the foal that was born, and you were worried that it was going to fall in the courtyard well. And he thought, ooh, that's right, that was what I was thinking. And he turned to the Nawab, the governor, and he said, and you were thinking about all the horses you were going to sell and how much money you were going to make. And they said, well, he's right, that's true, that's true. And they said, well, how can we pray then? He said, you have to calm your mind, and you have to go inside your heart, and you have to let the light of God shine in your heart. And they thought, well, they thought he made a lot of sense, but they didn't exactly understand how they could do it. But Guru Nanak said, it's time for me to go now. So he called his friends, Mardana and Bala, and they headed out. And he turned to Mardana after they'd walked quite a long ways, maybe about as far as from here to Santa Fe. They just walked. They don't have any cars or anything to go in. Yeah, they just walked. Well, he knows the way wherever God takes him. He just goes. A boat. On a boat, if he had one, he would. And he turned to Mardana and he said, go into the next town and you'll see a friend there and tell him, and he has a present for you. Mardana said, I don't know anybody in that town. I don't have any friend there. How are you going to get a present? He said, well, just go and do it. Go down the road and then turn and you'll see. So Mardana did. He walked down a ways and he turned And sure enough, the man came up to him and he said, "Oh, Guru Nanak sent you." And he was kind of surprised. He said, "Whoa, how did he know that?" But, you know. And he had a rebok. A rebok is like a guitar, but it's small, and it's the kind of instrument that they played in those days. And he said, "Here, I've been keeping this for you." And he gave Mardana the rebok. And Mardana thought, whoa. So Mardana took the rebok and he went back to Guru Nanak. He didn't know what he was supposed to do with it, but he took it to Guru Nanak. Guru Nanak said, "Now play it." He said, "I don't know how to play that. I've never played one before in my whole life." He said, "Ah, not this life, but in your other lifetimes, you were a master of the rebok. Just put your hand on it, you'll see." And sure enough, he took the guitar, rebok, and he did like this, and he did know how to play it. He remembered, his hands remembered. His mind might not have remembered, but his hand remembered, and he could play it. And Guru Nanak could sing, and Mardana played the rebok. And they traveled along. Everywhere they went, people were so happy to come and hear their songs, and they shared their food with them and took care of them. And where did Guru Nanak usually sleep? You remember what he liked to sit under the most? What? Trees, yes. So most of the time they stayed under the trees, but they came to this one town. Guru Nanak went to the carpenter's house, and the man's name was Lalo, and he went to the carpenter's house. Very poor man. He just worked hard, hammering and building. And he stayed. He said, "I've come to stay in your house." Oh, that man was so happy and so glad that Guru Nanak had come to his house to stay for a visit. And so he fixed the best food that he could, because with the money he had. And then in that town there was a very rich man who every year thought that he should have a huge big feast. Like we're going to have tomorrow, our Thanksgiving feast. Remember, that means you have all kind of food to eat, right? But all the holy men had to come. He wanted the holy men to come. And when he heard that Guru Nanak was in Lalo's house, he sent his messenger and said, "Tell him to come." The messenger went and told Guru Nanak that the rich man would like him to come to his house. He said, "No, I'm sorry, I can't. I won't go to his house." Well, the messenger felt bad to go back and tell that, but he did, and the rich man was so mad, and he acted so ugly, and he just yelled around, and he said, "You better go back and get him to come to my feast, my party, or else I'm going to beat you." So the messenger said, "All right." So he went back, and he said, "Oh, please, please come to the rich man's house." And Guru Nanak saw he didn't want the man to get beaten, right? He said, "All right, I'll come." So he went, and he sat down, and all the men were there, all the holy men and all the priests and everybody was there, and they were eating away. And Guru Nanak didn't eat anything. And so the rich man said, "Why are you not eating? This is the best food. My cooks have worked for hours to fix this very best food. Why are you not eating?" And he said, "Well, I'll show you why I'm not eating." He says, and he told Mardana, he said, "Go and get some food from Lalo's house." And he told the rich man, "I want some food from your house." So they brought him some food, but probably a chapati. They brought chapati from Lalo's house and a chapati from Malik Bhago was his name, Malik Bhago's house. And this Guru took it, hold the picture up, and they can see what happened. And he took the chapatis in his hand, and he squeezed them, and out of the rich man's chapati came blood. Dripping blood came out of that chapati, that bread. And out of Lalo's bread came milk. Nice pure white milk. Everybody was shocked. They said, "What does this mean? What does it mean?" And he said, Guru Nanak said, "Lalo works hard, and he shares everything he can, and his food is pure. And I can eat his food. It is pure from the work that he does and the love in his heart." Malik Bhago, on the other hand, he steals from people, He cheats people. He works his people by beating them and hitting them and making them do his work. And his food has all that anger and vibration and all that grossness. And I can't eat his food. Well, Malik Bago realized that that was true. And he was very, very sorry. He put his head down. He said, please. Our food, right. We are careful to eat very nice food, and we chant with our food. We say Satnam before we eat to make it all good. And so tomorrow, when we have our Thanksgiving, we'll know that we are so blessed that we're able to eat good, pure food and share with one another.